In terms of specific tips then for how you can run sessions to build sort of inter-team capability, and this is about bringing teams together. So what works very well is if you look at sort of a customer value chain or any kind of value chain, figure out a couple of the teams who have to work very closely together to deliver some kind of value, and put those people in a room together for a day or so, or maybe over a few days, and you can focus on a few things. And I've tried to just distill a few tips here, which I'm going to sort of read from a list. So the first thing I'd say is that when you get teams together and you look at inter-team development, first thing I do, and this is a bit counterintuitive, is figure out where the boundaries are. Get each team to talk about, well, this is what we do and this is what we think we own, and then each team shares what they think they do. And inevitably what that happens is you get a sense of the sort of the boundaries of where they're saying, look, this is our piece and this is where we think your piece is, and this is your piece. What inevitably you find is there's generally a misunderstanding about who owns what. So having that conversation really allows you to start to identifying the boundaries, you understand then what you have to collaborate across. And in some cases those boundaries overlap, so both of us think we should be doing this and we have to come to some sort of agreement, or sometimes there's a huge gap and we're here and we're here and there's nothing being done in the middle. So focusing on boundaries by definition allows you then to figure out, well, how do I collaborate over those? And once you've established the boundaries, the part two of this point is then figure out the interdependencies. Where are there critical interdependencies between the teams to allow this work to flow through the organisation, and because those things will be critical going forward, but also you need to keep reviewing those because inevitably new interdependencies emerge. So understand your boundaries, understand the interdependencies, and then start to figure out who in those teams is working on that. And then if you have little breakout sessions, it's okay, rather than being big groups, you six who are in these different teams who work on this thing, there seems to be some interdependencies. You need to sort of rely on each other. Why don't you go over here and have a chat over here? So you can start to change the dynamic from sort of them to sort of us. So boundaries and interdependencies, first thing. Second thing is look for opportunities to co-location. If you want to try and drive some kind of interdependencies and want to try and drive some more sort of inter-team work, put them so they can see each other and spend time. Now in a remote virtual world, not always easy, but you could create sort of virtual moments where you co-locate. But if you can do, physically change your office spaces to put these people together. And it's not uncommon in industry that where you might embed yourself with a supplier and supplier embeds themselves with you because they want to work more closely with you. So this isn't some sort of new radical idea, but if you're together and you're physically in the same space, we know that cross-team working becomes much easier. The third one is if you really want to drive this inter-team working, really look at the workload of your teams. If you overwork your teams, if you have very heavy workloads, inevitably people just silo down into their own piece of work. They haven't got the headspace or the type of energy to worry about helping or understanding other people outside their team. So teams that are very bad at inter-team working are often teams that are hugely overloaded. So you've got to look at that and structurally, have you got the right kind of resources, or are you just driving a culture where everyone's just surviving, therefore there's no consideration or no even time to do any of this sort of inter-team working. The fourth one I'd say is take active measures to foster a collaboration culture. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you overtly look for opportunities where you can lower the barrier for asking for help. How hard is it to ask for people to go to other teams and ask for help? If they can just walk across the corridor and ask for help, great. But if they've got to send a memo to someone's boss, it's going to come down the chain to get help. It's going to be very difficult. So look for all opportunities to make it really easy for people to start asking each other for help. And when people do help and are supported, recognise and reward people who are supporting. So a good example would be, I think when Lego were trying to change their culture around being more innovative, there was a very famous sort of slogan that came out, and it talks about blame is not for those who ask for help, blame is those who do not give help. So there's this idea that we're an organisation where you should all be helping each other, and it's incumbent on you to ask for help if you need it, and it's very incumbent on you to give help if you're indeed asked. So that was the fourth one, foster a collaborative culture. The fifth one then is this idea of reducing the power divide. If you're in a very hierarchical teams, and there are certain cultures where it's much more hierarchical than others, so this idea of power distance, you need to try and reduce that. So you've got to make it more egalitarian. Leaders have to be, more opening, more welcome. They've got to lower the risk for people to go and ask questions. So you're trying to just reduce any perceived fear or worry about how people will engage with senior leaders, because we know that part of inter-team development is sort of making sense and sharing context. And if people are sitting in meetings sort of terrified about what the leader may or may not say or what they may say, then it closes down communication. So leaders across teams need to find ways to just make sure it feels a lot more egalitarian and reduce the power distance. The sixth thing I'd say to focus on is this idea of knowledge. Information that flows through the teams is a real way to help bring teams together. So you're looking to maximise information flow and close any knowledge gaps. So for example, having sort of lunch and learns between teams, where the teams can share what each other are working on or what their expertise is. So you're looking for any opportunity to make sure that knowledge and understanding flows across the teams. Because it's vital information they may need for collaboration and coordination, but also it just increases the social cohesion across the team. So look, for example, for larger sessions, rather than have individual management team calls, maybe have a large team call. So, moving more to things like all hands than classic management meetings. Extend more membership to these sessions to more people. So bigger membership on these kind of calls, and maybe having more frequent calls. So like, maybe it could be like a weekly connect call or a drop-in call. But think about how can you can extend more. Extend to people greater opportunity to ask questions and understand what's going on. So again, more egalitarian, less hierarchical. The other thing I'd say is try and ban sort of email exchanges. So what I'm saying is if something's not working, if someone fires an email to one person, it fires it back. Before you know it, you've got some kind of email war going on. Have a culture, just go and talk about it. If you've got a problem or an issue or a question, just get off, go across the room, sit down, and talk to the person about it. And if you can't do that physically because you're in different countries, then do a call. But really try to get people to step away from these sort of email exchanges that can then people sort of weaponize their emails almost. Then bosses get copied in. Before you know it, it becomes very hierarchical, it becomes very combative. You're trying to navigate sometimes difficulty and competing priorities and uncertainty, and all those things are difficult. And what you don't do is you don't throw oil on the fire by suddenly then having these sort of very one-way communication through emails. So have a real culture of go and talk about it, and go and figure it out. Don't escalate it to your line manager. Really try and solve it at your level. And I guess lastly, I'd say invest in understanding people's individual preferences. And this is where I think some formal training around things like relational intelligence can be important. In order to navigate inter-team dynamics, you've first got to really understand yourself. You've got to understand yourself in terms of what are your motivations, your drivers, what are your personal preferences. Understand other people so that when you're having maybe more difficult, challenging conversations where you're in opposition, there's some disagreement, you can find a way to sort of, through your emotional and relational intelligence, to avoid that turning from opposition into some kind of conflict. So having a higher skill in the team around relational intelligence and understanding preferences, I'd say would be a very useful investment. So I hope those tips are helpful. Thank you.